Good evening. Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Martin Clunes. In the news this week, in Dorset, as the government launches its new range of Brexit action figures, Boris Johnson visits the factory making the heads for the Sajid Javid model. At the recent Lib Dem conference, Tim Farron enthusiastically joins in the applause as a speaker calls for even stronger support for gay rights. And in preparation for Brexit, the government demonstrate their new smart technology for identifying illegal immigrants sneaking in at Dover. On Ian's team tonight is that rarest of things, a Lib Dem MP who's been a Lib Dem MP for more than 3 months. Please welcome Layla Moran MP. And with Paul tonight is a comedian who once said she wanted to be Prime Minister. Well, give it 6 months, I think we'll all have a go. Welcome, Sara Pascoe. As a measure of the extraordinary times we're living in, round one will not be the usual video montage round. For round one this week, we're going to play Boris's Brexit Balls-Ups. The randomiser is going to select a picture, and I want you to identify the image and explain the balls up. Fingers on buzzers. Here's your first one.
Boris and Angela Merkel had a phone call where she said, well, it seems very unlikely that this Brexit negotiation is going to get any further. And Number 10 leaked the details of this. I heard the BBC News say this week it looks increasingly unlikely. I'm not quite sure when it looked likely that we were going to be having a Brexit deal.
The conversation was leaked to The Spectator by a source in Number 10. And I read in this week's Spectator, it said, it's believed to be Dominic Cumming.
No way.
And you thought, you're The Spectator, you know. Dominic Cummings' wife is the commissioning editor of The Spectator. She knows.
So with that kind of thing, because obviously you work in journalism, is that because they're trying to
That's
make
very
it...
flattering.
So is that the kind of thing you can kind of do and hint at to make it look like it isn't the person that it is, or are you heavily hinting this is the person?
No, I think the giveaway with Dominic Cummings' version was that it was mad. So if you were thinking, who's the source for that, you'd read it and you think, it's mad. That's Dominic Cummings. But anyway, they were furious, because you're meant to have these phone calls and they're not meant to be leaked. It's meant to be a negotiation.
According to a leak of the conversation, Angela said the UK cannot leave without leaving Northern Ireland behind in a customs union and in full alignment forever. She went on to say that if Germany wanted to leave the EU, they could do it, no problem. What did Donald Tusk accuse Boris of?
The blame game. He said, you're trying to win the blame game, which is one of the few ITV quiz shows that have never quite made it past the pilot stage.
He actually called it a stupid blame game.
Stupid blame game.
Which might get on ITV.
Yeah. You've got a series on ITV.
Yeah.
That's very bold of you.
I used to have a series on it. He said, I do not accept this blame game of blaming the eventual failure of the negotiations on the European Union. The explanation is in the British camp, he said, blamingly. What's been good news for Ireland this week?
Rugby.
Not rugby, no,
Not
no,
rugby.
You won't get this.
No.
This is the good news.
Yeah.
A bran flake replica of Ireland has been valued at £1,000 on eBay. Here
How
it
would
is.
we know this? That's amazing.
OK, come on, give us a clue. Which is which? I can't tell.
If you nibble off the top, then that's what the DUP want.
Oh. Yes, nothing like bran flakes for easing that tricky backstop. But getting back to Boris for a second,
Yeah.
he's been in training his whole life to become Prime Minister, but how's he gone down with the public? Let's have a look at a little montage here.
You should be in Brussels negotiating.
We have been negotiating.
You are not. You are immorally.
Please leave my town.
I will very soon.
Here in Oxford today, Boris Johnson's constituency.
Do you ever mention that name in front of me, that filthy piece of toe rag?
And that's his mother.
Yes, this is the news, that we're now in the very final straight of Brexit. In his phone call to Angela Merkel, Boris Johnson said he needed her to help us get the boat off the rocks. That's not the first time he's made an early morning call to a lady asking for a little tug. Fingers on your buzzers, teams. Here's another one.
That's Hilary Benn.
Yeah.
Who brought the act in Parliament saying that Britain won't accept a no deal and Boris has to write a letter getting an extension if we don't have a deal by October. And Boris keeps being asked, are you going to obey the law and actually obey this thing? And he always says, I'm going to obey the law, but he won't say whether he's going to write this letter.
But what if he did disobey that law? What might happen to him?
Well, I mean, again, he would be breaking the law and then he'd go back, presumably, maybe not to the Supreme Court, because they've had enough of him, but he'd go to some court and say, I'm entitled to break the law because I'm Boris Johnson, which is not in the Constitution.
What would Parliament do?
The main thing is to avoid no deal. That letter must be sent and the extension must be granted. Everything else
and then he
comes
goes to
second.
jail.
Right, then you'd have to get a new government, a new acting Prime Minister. Layla, why won't the Lib Dems let Jeremy Corbyn be Prime Minister?
That's not
Go on.
fair.
Let him have
it's
a go.
not that we're
Be
not
nice for him, wouldn't it?
letting him.
It's before he
This is
dies.
right. You know how we were talking about...
When they take a granny skydiving, strap him on the back of a commando.
Even if we did let him have a go, it's not up to us. It's got to be about, does he have the numbers? And we've got Philip Hammond, who said he would rather boil his head in a bag than have Jeremy Corbyn anywhere near number 10. He's got to have people like Amber Rudd, Anna Soubry. There just isn't the numbers. So let's move on. And I nominate Ian. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Wow. Are we present at the start of something here, Ian?
I think so.
6
I think
people
you could
agree with
command,
you.
yeah. I think you could command the will of the House, don't you?
Are you drunk?
You're really undermining.
I mean, is it true that the Lib Dems will take anyone so long as they don't know what they
Absolutely
stand?
not.
David Cameron.
Oh, God.
No, because you're in coalition with them.
No.
That would be unthinkable. How about Jeremy? What if Jeremy just shipped out, had enough?
Jeremy Corbyn?
Yeah, and said, I'm a Lib Dem.
Well, he does have an allotment.
Also, this week, the independent group's Heidi Allen became the 7th MP this year to join the Liberal Democrats alongside former Conservative and ex-Labour MPs, making the Lib Dems the political equivalent of WeBuyAnyCar.com. What other secret documents have been unearthed this week?
What, generally?
Yes, the Evening Standard discovered that in 2015, Boris Johnson wrote a script for an adventure film that he hoped would star Scarlett Johansson or Angelina Jolie.
Wow.
This is so exciting.
Yes.
So it was. He had the idea it was going to be like an archaeologist with a young woman, wasn't it, going around, and it was rejected.
Johnson states that the male lead, Marmaduke Montmorency Burton, should be played by a Clooney Eastwood Connery type in his 50s alongside a gorgeous yet scholarly female lead.
And should this Clooney Eastwood Connery type have messy blonde hair?
Yeah. Or Clunesy. I'll do it. Yes, this is the Benn Act that Boris Johnson is thought to be planning to disobey, ignore or somehow weasel his way out of. The current constitutional crisis means the Queen may be put in the awkward position of having to choose the next government, which she will decide based on who can bring economic stability and who will stop Andrew being extradited to the United States. Johnson has insisted on referring to the Benn Act as the Surrender Act, while divisive terms like betrayal and treachery have conjured up images of World War II. Though, of course, the big difference between Brexit and World War II is that World War II only lasted 6 years. Also, this week, it was revealed that Boris Johnson has written a screenplay for an action film set in the Middle East. Presumably, in the story, our hero charges into Iran, finds a British woman being held hostage against her will and gets her sentence increased. Who wants another Brexit Boris balls up? Fingers on buzzers.
Jennifer Arcuri, who is definitely not a close pole-dancing friend of Boris. And definitely there is no conflict of interest at all in anything that Boris ever did with her companies, ever.
They've admitted that they obviously have been lovers. That's
No,
not...
No,
they haven't admitted.
What, haven't they?
No, no.
Oh, OK,
no,
a different WhatsApp group.
No, no.
Sorry, OK, no one... What I mean is no one knows, and...
He took her around some of the sites of London, apparently.
Oh, I see. It's like...
Up the gherkin.
She went on the Piers Morgan show. She was given a chance to deny it.
Yeah.
6 times. She didn't deny it. She said,
Yeah.
I'm not going to weaponise this by giving an answer. Whereas she could have ended it if she'd said, no, we didn't.
But them being romantically involved in whatever capacity isn't the problem, it's the business side. So we get kind of carried away with the saucy bits.
No, but no. It's more if you are having an affair with someone and you pay them £126,000 of public money, that becomes very, very reprehensible. And if you put them on trade missions and also write letters suggesting that they get jobs which they're not qualified for, again, the fact you're having an affair with them is important. So sex, obviously, we're not interested in, but we are in this case.
Oh, I see. I see.
He had signed an agreement when he was Mayor of London that any friends, any conflict of interest he would declare. And there has been nothing ever declared about her, but she's definitely gone on these trade
You have
trips.
to sign something saying, I'll tell you if I make a friend.
If you make a friend and give them money, I think that's fair, don't you? It's taxpayers' money.
I give loads of my... Oh, yeah, taxpayers' money. OK.
She gave a number of reasons for the visit. One, she said, so that we could bounce some ideas around together. He just wanted to learn about technology, mainly how to turn off that Find My Phone tracker. And she also said, why wouldn't he want to visit me? I had the best fucking flat in East London. Bit of a giveaway calling it a fucking flat. But we must make it clear, mustn't we, Ian, that Jennifer Arcuri denies that she had any favourable treatment.
Yeah, she said it was perfectly reasonable for her to be included in these trade missions after all the officials had said, why are you inviting her? She has no right to be on this mission. And then Boris said, I want her anyway, on the trade mission. And then she went on, which is all perfectly normal, except it isn't ever.
And how did she express her ability to control men like Boris Johnson? She said, men fall in love with me after 10 minutes. I make men trip over their dicks. Doesn't she sound fun?
I like the sound of those men.
This is Jennifer Arcuri, the American businesswoman. Defending herself from accusations of an affair with Johnson, Jennifer Arcuri told one newspaper, men just trip over themselves in front of me. In Boris's case, it was because he turned up with his trousers already round his ankles. Time now for round 2, which unusually is the VT montage round. Paul and Sarah, what's going on here?
OK, this is the Extinction Rebellion.
Coffin of our future.
There's a metaphor there. There's the mysterious crow people of Orkney. And there's a, unfortunately, genetically sized rabbit who is part of the march. And the policeman's having a bit of a laugh.
He's having a laugh, isn't it?
He's having a big laugh. He knows he's walking next to a big rabbit and he's on camera. And he's having a laugh.
Oh, wait till he finds out he's on Have I Got News for You.
Exactly.
He'll be over the moon.
Yeah. He might even be a policeman. That might be a real rabbit, but fake policeman. We don't know. Is that right?
Yes. What was the first thing?
Extinction Rebellion.
Yes, that's right, yes. What have they been doing to make their point?
Gluing each other to the street.
Well, they turned up in London and said, we're going to close down Westminster, and I thought, well, you're too late.
They also had an impromptu game of cricket outside the Supreme Court and a mass public breastfeeding session.
Oh, yeah.
They used to feed pigeons. Similar protests earlier this year, police were criticised for being too friendly towards the protesters, which they've changed. How have they changed that this time?
Well, they've arrested more people, but, I mean, it still seems remarkably friendly. I mean, the Prime Minister was very cross, and he said that this rebellion should be treated with the full force of the law. He just doesn't get irony, does he?
They arrested over 600 people. They got an 81-year-old Quaker and a 43-year-old Brazilian pole dancer, which still remains the only pole dancing-related arrest in the Westminster area. What did Boris have to say about the protests and the protesters?
Uncooperative crusties.
Yeah, that's right, yes. What they used to call the House of Lords. He said it was time for them to leave their hemp-smelling bivouacs. How did Extinction Rebellion attempt to kick off the fortnight of protests?
They attempted to use a fire hose with red blood water all over the... Was it the Treasury?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's a clip. A good point, well made.
I thought it was marvellous, someone being a completely useless outside the Treasury instead of in.
Did anybody know what Vladimir Putin had to say about Greta Thunberg?
Probably something not very nice.
Watch out for the doorknob. Oh, yes, very bad taste.
Oh, I get it. No, he's not that taken with her. During a recent speech, he said, "I don't share the excitement about Greta Thunberg," going on to describe her as a poorly informed teenager. And speaking of Putin, where did he unexpectedly turn up recently?
Walthamstow dog track.
Does he
He came out
understand
of
this?
trap 6 and won.
In the meat section of an Aldi in Croydon. Let's have a look.
Oh.
That's uncanny, isn't it? This is Extinction Rebellion, which has descended on Westminster to paralyse the capital. Although if they really wanted to provoke a reaction from Londoners, they could have just gone into the underground and stood on the left-hand side of the escalators. Ian and Layla, take a look at this.
Oh, it's a mask I could wear to look more like Trump. Oh, what's that?
You're very young. And this is the President of the United States.
He is.
At the moment, clapping himself. He's about to be impeached for trying to influence foreign governments to interfere in US elections, which is illegal. And the evidence for it is that he admitted it.
In a phone call?
And then repeated it publicly and said not only should Ukraine interfere, but China should as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he's read any history, but...
No. It's a quick answer to that one.
yeah.
No, he's a moron. In the end, he didn't really think that what he had done was wrong. So therefore, he produced his own evidence. He's self-impeaching. I mean, I'm not saying he talks out of his arse, but every time he sits down, his voice is muffled.
But he is prepared to calmly and rationally answer questions on the phone call. Let's have a little look.
Yes.
The question, sir, was what did you want President Zelensky to do about Vice President Biden and his son Hunter?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, it was just a follow-up of what I just asked you, sir.
Listen, you ready? We have the President of Finland. Ask him a question.
I have one for him. I just wanted to follow up on the one that I asked you, which
Did
was,
you hear
what
me?
did you want
Did you
him
hear
to
me?
Yes,
Ask
sir.
him a question.
I will, but
I've given you a long answer. Ask this gentleman a question. Don't be rude.
Don't be rude.
What's Trump done to try and distract attention from the impeachment?
Oh, he started a war.
Elaborate.
Well, he had a phone call with another sort of dictator from Turkey. And obviously, I don't think he thinks much. And the other guy said, do you mind if I invade Syria and attack the Kurds? And Trump went, no, go for it. Good idea. And then got off the phone, and then it happened. And everybody else in America, all the people said, they're our allies. They just won the war for us. Don't do it.
Oh, but he had a justification, didn't he?
What was
he said
that?
the other day, he said, well, you know, the Kurds, where were they in World War II? They didn't help us at Normandy. Because, well, they don't live in Europe. They also kept mighty quiet about the gunpowder plot, so...
He tweeted a warning to Turkey not to take things too far, saying, as I have stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey I've done before. They must, with Europe and others, watch over. So that's cleared that up. This is the news that America has finally come round to the idea of impeaching Donald Trump. Donald Trump has defended his foreign policy in the Middle East, saying the Kurds didn't help us with D-Day. Using that logic, it's bad news for Shawaddy Waddy as they didn't lift a finger in Vietnam. Following the invasion of northern Syria, President Trump has threatened Turkey with economic ruin, which many assume means he's going to buy it. Time now for the odd one out round. It's just one between you this week. Your four are Edward de Vere, David Cameron, Helena Bonham Carter, and Michael Owen.
It feels to be about books because Michael Owen has got in trouble with Newcastle because of things he said about the city in his recent book. David Cameron recently had a book come out.
Yes, he
and
did.
It's too long.
But he offended the Queen.
He also
in the book.
offended the Queen.
Yeah.
Oh, did
People
he?
have been
And Helena-
offended, yes.
And Helena Bonham Carter is
Princess
playing
Margaret.
Princess Margaret, and
Yeah.
also offended the palace because she said that they liked it or something.
No, she
Oh,
said
I
Princess
thought-
Margaret from Beyond the Grave liked it. Helen Bonham
So
Carter
they've
says...
all
but-
offended royalty apart from Michael Owen who offended Newcastle.
They've all embarrassed themselves in front of royalty. Yes, quite right, right.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Except for Helena Bonham Carter, who claims that Princess Margaret told her from beyond the grave that she could play her in The Crown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And De Vere, he was flatulent, I believe.
He was.
In front of the Queen.
yes.
Yes.
And in those days, it wasn't a one-to-one with the Prime Minister. Do what you like now. But he was sacked and exiled and removed from court.
Yes, quite right. Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, is said to have farted in front of Queen Elizabeth I. At the time, court etiquette dictated that you quickly cover the smell by burning a Catholic. Do you know what Princess Margaret, specifically from Beyond the Grave, asked Helena Bonham Carter to focus on in her performance? She said she had to get the smoking right.
Is it difficult to get the smoking wrong?
Wrong way round. So if you have the lit side in your mouth,
Oh, right, yeah.
it really burns your
In
tongue.
your ear or
Yeah.
something?
What has David Cameron admitted to doing when he was in the presence of the Queen? for
He
the first
swore,
time? Yeah.
But he also revealed their private conversations.
which he shouldn't do.
The palace was furious. He kept saying that he'd asked her to help over the Scottish referendum, and they take a dim view of this.
Quite right. How did Michael Owen get what he calls bollocked by the Queen? Ian?
No, I've no idea.
No idea.
Well, according to his autobiography, he took his hat off when the Queen walked into the royal lift, to which the Queen said, "If you put your hat back on, we might all fit in." Michael also said, to this day, I have absolutely no idea if she was joking.
Did she think they could all fit in the hat?
In other royal news, what have Harry and Meghan had enough of?
The media.
Daily Mail.
They are very, very upset. And she is suing the Mail on Sunday, and he is suing the Mirror and the Sun.
For separate things.
For separate things.
Yes.
And Harry released a long statement
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
saying he didn't want to be criticised in the press and that it was two-faced, to be nice to him one minute and then the next minute not to be nice. Which I think was probably not very well advised, is what you always say.
I think that statement, and maybe that's how you perceived it, but I thought it was much more about the extremes that they're going to. It's not that they do print stories, that lies get... that obviously papers are sold with gossip and tittle-tattle, and we all enjoy it, but watching what happened to his mother, it crosses a line, and what's happened with Meghan has been bullying and racism, and it's every day.
But it's also legitimate criticism of the fact that, you know, the British public pay very large amounts of money to upkeep this couple, and if they don't like what they're doing, for example, lecturing them on eco-issues and then flying off to an eco-summit in a private jet.
but
it's
if they
not
don't
about
like
that,
that, the press is allowed to comment. But, I mean, it is a free press. No one ever said it was pretty, but it is free. You want positive coverage? The Saudi royal family gets really good coverage at home.
Yeah.
Turkey, yeah, the president. They like what he does, or they die. I mean, trust me, I know this stuff. I've won so many of these cases.
So all of these people have embarrassed themselves in front of royalty, except for Helena Bonham Carter, who claims that Princess Margaret told her from beyond the grave she could play her in The Crown. David Cameron has revealed that his daughter once asked him, "Daddy, is it true you were actually the Prime Minister?" To which he shouted through a hole in the shed, "You can buy the bloody book like everyone else." Arch-Tory Eurosceptic Mark Francois said he wouldn't be buying Cameron's memoirs because I went to the index, I went down to F, and I looked for my name, and it wasn't there. Should have looked under C, mate. So it's time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication the newsletter of the British Beekeepers Association. And we start with... Alan Titchmarsh is the new face of what?
The Lib Dems.
Is it Dignitas?
No.
Is it? Because he has that effect on me, I tell you.
It's Adidas.
What? What?
There he is. His children look nice.
Why is he mowing artificial turf?
Alan Titchmarsh is featuring in adverts for Adidas's new gardening training shoe. Garish, knobbly and with a synthetic sole, Alan Titchmarsh is 70 years old. Next, Nigeria's oldest what dies at the age of 344?
Liar. It's got to be tortoise, isn't it? Because what else lives to be 144? It could be a plant, I suppose.
It was a tortoise, yes.
Oh, well,
done,
yeah.
done, OK.
This is the news that Alagba, the oldest tortoise in Nigeria, has died. According to the Mail Online, the 344-year-old tortoise died after suffering from a brief illness. She survived 15 kings, 9 queens and 1 rolling stone. Next, the good thing about holding the National Honey Show near London is what?
Access to the M20 hive.
If your other half isn't really into beekeeping, there are plenty of other attractions nearby. And finally, a Mexican mayor upsets town by using what at event?
Trump speechwriter.
No, it's a cardboard cutout of himself.
Yes!
He didn't bother turning up, so he had just a cardboard cutout.
He sure did. This is the mayor of Chiapas in Mexico who couldn't attend an event, so he sent a cutout of himself instead. Here he is at the event. And if that wasn't bad enough, the last cardboard mayor fell foul of a drugs cartel and was cut into pieces and found in a recycling bin. The final scores are Paul and Sarah, 6, and Ian and Layla lagging behind with 4.
Oh, we did it! Well done to you! Well done!
And I leave you with news that the latest Labour National Executive Committee considers a resolution to have toffees that aren't so chewy next time. At Horse Guards Parade, organisers realised it was a mistake to let the Duke of Edinburgh drive himself to the event. And as EU officials convene at a hotel for marathon Brexit talks, there's a narrow escape as Jean-Claude Juncker walks by in his Speedos. Good night.